You're already running 10 minutes late. Your 4-year-old is sitting on the floor, shoes next to him, staring at nothing in particular. Put your shoes on, you say. 5 minutes pass. Nothing. I said put your shoes on. We need to go. Still nothing. Now you're frustrated. Why can't you just do what I ask?
Put your
shoes on. Sound familiar? Here's the thing that might surprise you. Every time you remind your child to do something they're capable of doing themselves, you're actually teaching them not to do it. You're training them to wait for your instructions. I know that sounds backwards. Stick with me. In Japan, 4-year-olds navigate subway systems alone to run errands for their families. There's even a TV show about it called My First Errand. Meanwhile, here's what's happening in many Western homes. 8-year-olds waiting for parents to tell them to brush their teeth. 10-year-olds who can't pack their own backpacks. Teenagers who need reminders to do homework they've done every day for years. What's the difference? It's not genetics. It's not culture. It's neuroscience. By the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly why your well-meaning reminders are backfiring, and I'm going to give you a 5-step framework that builds genuine self-discipline instead of dependency. Not obedience.
discipline.
There's a difference. And that difference changes everything. You love your child. You want them to succeed. So you help them remember things. You remind them about homework, bedtime routines, putting away toys, getting ready for school. Makes sense, right? Here's the problem. Every external reminder prevents an internal reminder from forming. Think about it. When do you actually remember something on your own? When you have to. When there's no backup system. When the consequence lands on you, not someone else. Your child's prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for planning and self-regulation, develops through use. It's like a muscle. And every time you do the remembering for them, you're doing their mental push-ups. Here's what the research shows. Children who receive constant external regulation, reminders, and prompts develop weaker executive function skills. They're not learning to monitor their own behavior. They're learning to monitor you for cues about what to do next. You think you're teaching them what to do, but you're actually teaching them when to do it. Only when told. This is the difference between obedience and discipline. Obedience is external. It requires your presence, your voice, your enforcement. Discipline is internal. It's self-generated. It persists when you're not in the room. And here's what might sting a little. The phrases you're using to encourage your child? Some of them are doing the opposite. What Japanese parents know that we're missing? Before you think this is about Japanese parenting magic, let me be clear. This isn't cultural. It's neurological. Japanese parents aren't doing anything mystical. They're simply structuring their parenting around a principle that researchers call learned helpfulness versus learned helplessness. When a 5-year-old takes public transit alone to buy groceries, here's what's happening in their brain. Their basal ganglia, which handles habit formation and procedural memory, is building neural pathways. Their prefrontal cortex is managing planning, risk assessment, and problem solving. Their anterior cingulate cortex is handling error detection and correction. All without a parent's voice saying, "Did you remember to?" Or "Make sure you," or "Don't forget to." Now you're probably thinking, but my child would never be able to do that. They can't even remember to flush the toilet. Exactly. Because they haven't had to build those neural pathways. You've been the pathway. The core concept, jiriki. The Japanese have a term, jiriki. It translates roughly to self-power or one's own strength. The principle is simple. Children develop competence through struggle, not through rescue. Think about lifting weights. Your muscles don't grow when you're lifting something easy. They grow when you're pushing against resistance, when the weight is almost too heavy, when your muscles are actually experiencing micro-tears that rebuild stronger. Your child's self-regulation works the same way. The principle: struggle builds structure in the brain. The 4 pillars of self-discipline. Pillar 1. Expectation over reminder. This is what it means. You establish the expectation once, clearly, then you trust it's been received. Here's the neuroscience. Every time you repeat an instruction, you're signaling to your child's brain that the first instruction didn't count. You're teaching them that information isn't important until you say it multiple times. Researchers studying working memory have found that children who receive repeated reminders actually develop worse recall than children who receive single, clear instructions. The common mistake? Parents think repeating equals emphasis. It doesn't. It equals erasure of the first message. Brief example, instead of saying bedtime is at 8 p.m. every single night, you say it once during a calm moment. In our family, bedtime is 8 p.m. That means lights out, teeth brushed in bed. I trust you to keep track of that. Then you don't remind them. You let them experience what happens when they forget. Pillar 2, observation over intervention. What it is, you notice what's happening, but you don't immediately fix it. The neuroscience behind this is fascinating. Mirror neurons fire when we watch others struggle and problem solve. When you immediately step in to fix every problem, you're preventing your child's brain from activating those neural networks. The prefrontal cortex needs to encounter problems, generate solutions, test them, and adjust. That entire loop gets interrupted when you intervene too quickly. Common mistake. Thinking that watching your child struggle is neglect. It's not. It's respect for their capability. Example, your 6-year-old is trying to zip their jacket and getting frustrated. Instead of swooping in, you wait. You watch. You give them 30 seconds of struggle. Their brain is working. Problem-solving networks are firing. They're building frustration tolerance. If they ask for help, you can scaffold it. Show me what you've tried so far. What could you do differently? Pillar 3, natural consequences over artificial punishment. This means you let reality be the teacher, not your disappointment. Here's what happens neurologically. When consequences come from you, anger, punishment, lectures, your child's amygdala, their emotional center, activates. They feel threatened. When they're in threat mode, their learning centers shut down. But when consequences come from reality, from natural cause and effect, their hippocampus, the learning and memory center, stays engaged. They're learning, not defending. The mistake? Parents rescue their kids from natural consequences because they feel bad. Then they impose artificial ones when they're frustrated. Example, your 8-year-old forgets their homework. Don't bring it to school. Don't lecture. Let them experience the consequence with their teacher. That embarrassment? That's their prefrontal cortex learning. You can empathize later. That must have been hard. What do you think you'll do differently tomorrow? Pillar 4, questions over commands. What this looks like, you ask questions that activate their problem solving, rather than giving solutions. The neuroscience here is powerful. When someone tells you what to do, your brain's passive listening networks activate. When someone asks you a question, your executive function networks fire up. You shift from receiver to generator. Research on metacognition shows that children who are asked questions about their behavior develop significantly better self-monitoring skills than children who are simply told what to do. Common mistake. Thinking questions are just polite commands. They're not. Real questions genuinely don't know the answer and trust the child to generate it. Example, instead of go brush your teeth, you ask, what's the next thing you need to do before bed? Their brain has to retrieve the information, sequence the steps, and initiate action. All executive function practice. The 5-step implementation framework. Step 1. The clarity conversation. Here's what you do. Pick one routine or responsibility. Just one. Sit down with your child during a calm, connected moment, not in the middle of the chaos. Explain what you expect, why it matters, and that you're not going to remind them anymore. Instead of nagging every single night about the bedtime routine, do this. Hey, I want to talk about something. You're getting older, and your brain is ready to remember things on its own. Our bedtime routine is brush teeth, put on pajamas, one story, lights out at 8 p.m. Starting tomorrow, I'm not going to remind you. I trust your brain to remember. If you forget something, you'll probably figure it out pretty quick. What's happening in their brain? You're activating their sense of competence. The anterior cingulate cortex lights up when we're given autonomy. You're also creating what psychologists call a commitment device. When your child agrees to something, even implicitly, they're more likely to follow through. Anticipated objection. But my child will just never do it if I don't remind them.
Response: exactly.
That's the point. They need to experience that consequence to build the internal structure. 1 or 2 rough mornings are building their self-discipline for the next decade. Real example, 7-year-old Maya's mom stopped reminding her about backpack packing. First morning, forgot her lunch. Came home hungry and upset. Mom empathized but didn't rescue. Second morning, Maya packed her backpack before bed without being asked. Her brain learned. Step 2. The trust transfer. This is specific. For 1 week, anytime you want to remind them, you physically bite your tongue. Actually bite it. The slight pain will help you remember. Instead of, "Did you brush your teeth? Don't forget your homework. Put your shoes on." Do this. Silent observation. Bite your tongue.
Wait.
What's happening neurologically? Your child's brain is now forced to generate internal cues. The basal ganglia starts forming habits because there's no external prompt. Research on habit formation shows it takes about 66 days for behavior to become automatic, but the first week is when the neural patterns start laying down. Anticipated objection. I don't have time for them to forget things. We'll be late. Response. You're choosing between 5 minutes of inconvenience now and 5 years of reminding them later. Besides, being late once or twice teaches punctuality better than 1,000 reminders. Real example, 9-year-old Jamal's dad stopped reminding about homework. First week, Jamal went to school unprepared twice. Experienced the teacher's consequence. Week 2, started checking his planner independently. His brain built the neural pathway because there was space for it to form. Step 3. The empathetic witness. When they mess up, and they will, here's your script. That looks hard. What happened? Not, "I told you so." Not, "Why didn't you listen?" Just curiosity. Instead of, "See? This is why you need to listen to me. I reminded you 3 times. Do this." Ouch. I bet you wished you'd remembered your lunch. What do you think might help you remember tomorrow? What's happening in their brain? You're keeping their prefrontal cortex online. When kids feel blamed, their amygdala takes over and learning stops. When they feel supported, their hippocampus encodes the lesson. This is what researchers call optimal frustration, the sweet spot where struggle leads to growth, not shutdown. Anticipated objection. But don't they need to know I'm disappointed? Response, they know.
Trust me, they know.
Your disappointment piled on top of their consequence doesn't teach better. It just teaches them to hide mistakes from you. Real example, 5-year-old Sophia forgot her show and tell toy. Mom didn't rescue, didn't lecture. After school, Sophia was sad. Mom said, "Yeah, that's disappointing. I bet tomorrow you'll remember." Next week, Sophia put her show and tell in her backpack the night before, without a reminder. Step 4. The reflection loop. Every few days, ask, how's it going with the responsibility? What's working? What's tricky? Instead of checking up on them, monitoring their every move. Do this. Create a space for them to self-assess. Their metacognition, their thinking about thinking, develops through these conversations. What's happening neurologically? The brain has specific networks for self-reflection, primarily in the medial prefrontal cortex. These networks don't activate when someone else is evaluating you. They activate when you evaluate yourself. Research on executive function shows that children who regularly practice self-assessment develop better planning and organizational skills. Anticipated objection. My child will just say everything's fine even when it's not. Response. Maybe at first. But if you ask with genuine curiosity, not judgment, they'll start giving real answers. Kids are terrible liars to people who create safe spaces for truth. Real example, 11-year-old Marcus's mom asked him weekly how his morning routine was going. First couple times, he shrugged. By week 3, he said, I keep forgetting my PE clothes. I think I need to pack them the night before. Problem solved. By him. Step 5. The gradual release. Once they've mastered one responsibility, add another. Slowly. One new habit at a time. Instead of expecting them to suddenly remember everything independently. Do this. Build their self-regulation incrementally. First, they manage their morning routine. then their homework, then their after-school activities. Their brain is literally building capacity. What's happening? Executive function capacity is limited, especially in kids. The dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, which manages all this self-regulation, is still developing until the mid-20s. You're not withholding support. You're building capacity systematically. Anticipated objection. This is taking forever. Other kids can already do this stuff. Response. Comparison is the thief of joy and the enemy of development. Your child's timeline is their timeline. Besides, you're building something sustainable, not performing for other parents. Real example, 8-year-old David started by managing only his breakfast routine independently. Took 3 weeks. Then his parents added homework. Another 3 weeks. By 6 months, he was managing his entire after-school routine. Each success built confidence and capacity for the next. Handling your objections. But my child is different. I hear you. Maybe your child has ADHD. Maybe they're particularly resistant or anxious or strong-willed. Here's the reframe. Those kids need this approach more, not less. Children with ADHD actually have executive function deficits. That means their prefrontal cortex needs even more practice, not more external scaffolding. Research on ADHD interventions shows that the most effective approaches teach self-monitoring skills, not compliance to external reminders. Anxious kids? They're anxious partly because they haven't developed confidence in their own capability. Each time you swoop in to rescue, you confirm their belief that they can't handle things. Strong-willed kids? They're resisting your control. Give them self-control instead, and watch the resistance evaporate. Your child's uniqueness isn't a reason to exempt them. It's a reason to adapt the approach, not abandon it. This won't work in my culture/family. Maybe your family culture emphasizes obedience and respect. Maybe your cultural background involves more parental direction. Here's what I want you to understand. Discipline isn't disrespect. Teaching self-regulation isn't teaching rebellion. You can maintain your family's values while building your child's capability. In fact, the most respectful thing you can do is prepare your child to function independently in the world. Research across cultures shows that children who develop strong executive function skills are more successful, regardless of cultural context. Self-discipline is universally valuable. The approach actually supports the goal. You want a child who does the right thing because it's right, not just because you're watching. That's deeper respect than compliance. I don't have time for this. I get it. Mornings are already chaos. You're juggling work and siblings and your own stress. But here's the truth. You're already spending the time. You're spending it on reminders, arguments, rescuing, and frustration. This approach doesn't add time. It redistributes it. Instead of 20 reminders every morning, you have 2 hard mornings and then smooth sailing. Instead of fighting about homework for the next 5 years, you have 2 weeks of struggle and then independence. The research on parenting stress shows that parents who use more authoritative, less controlling approaches report lower stress over time. The front-loaded investment pays dividends. You don't have time not to do this. The transformation. Remember that scene from the beginning? Your 4-year-old sitting on the floor, shoes next to him. You running late? Here's what it looks like after you implement this framework. You're getting ready to leave. Your child is in the living room. You don't say anything about shoes. You gather your things. You head toward the door. Your child looks up, sees you moving, and thinks, "Oh, we're leaving. I need shoes." They put them on. By themselves.
No reminder.
No battle.
No frustration.
Their brain did it. Because it had to. Because you created space for the neural pathway to form. That's self-discipline. It's not perfect every time. Some mornings they'll still forget. But each time they remember, that pathway strengthens. Each time they problem solve through a consequence, their prefrontal cortex grows. Your next step. Here's your framework, simple. 1 responsibility. 1 week of silence. Empathetic witnessing when they struggle. Reflection conversations. Gradual expansion. It's going to feel uncomfortable at first. You're going to want to remind them. You're going to feel like you're not being a good parent. That feeling? That's growth. Yours and theirs. Start small. Pick one thing this week. Maybe it's the morning routine. Maybe it's homework. Maybe it's just remembering to bring their water bottle to soccer. One thing. 0 reminders. Natural consequences. Supportive reflection. You're not being mean. You're being their prefrontal cortex's personal trainer. And if you want to dive deeper into the neuroscience of self-discipline and the specific language patterns that build it, I've got another video breaking down the exact phrases that activate your child's executive function. I'll link that right here. Your child is more capable than you think. Their brain is ready. The question is yours?